It's Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. Donald Trump's speech to the joint session of Congress. The trade wars continue, and cuts to the IRS could be on the way. That's next on the AM Update.
No, first of all, that's never going to happen. We will never be the 51st state.
3.3 million visitors from Canada. That's not much of a boycott in my book. Maybe they wanted to get a glimpse of what a Stanley Cup winning hockey team actually looks like.
But I think he's going to figure out, you do more, and I'll meet you in the middle some way.
The man won every swing state, and on top of it all, 89% of the counties shifted gifts. I don't understand how people can look at that and say, there's no mandate.
And to my fellow citizens, America is back.
Donald Trump had his address to the joint session of Congress last night. From what I've seen, it's the longest in history, about 100 minutes for one of these types of speeches. It was really all sorts of, basically all parts of Trump's personality, really the best parts of him wrapped into one. He did the weave like he talks about, but just seamlessly inspiring, seamlessly putting other countries on notice, putting the world on notice, seamlessly just poking his opposition right to their faces, all of that in about 100 minutes. Here's what stuck out towards the early part of his speech. He, like I said, poked the Democrats right to their faces.
We have ended weaponized government where, as an example, a sitting president is allowed to viciously prosecute his political opponent, like me. How did that work out? Not too good.
That was one of the first moments that really stuck out. He also said and made this declaration about woke ideology.
And our country will be woke no longer.
Indeed. Throughout the entire speech, Democrats refused to clap for anything. Even the most universal themes, even the most universally beloved policies like tax cuts, they didn't clap. There were a few Democrats who clapped when the issue of Ukraine was brought up, of course. One of the best moments of the night was when Donald Trump, he honored one of his special guests by the name of Peyton McNabb, who had her promising athletic career cut short after she suffered a traumatic brain injury at the hands of a dude who feels pretty playing in a volleyball game. The White House chose to highlight her story on social media.
So my name is Peyton McNabb. I am from Murphy, North Carolina. My senior year of high school, I was permanently injured by a male posing as a woman on the opposing team. He hit me so severely that it knocked me unconscious, and it left me with lifelong effects, stuff that I'm still dealing with today. Partial paralysis, vision impairment, cognitive issues. The list goes on. I mean, it is a brain injury, so it does take more time. Ever since then, I spoke out as soon as I turned 18, and it just blew up overnight. That's pretty much started the next 2 years for me.
And Donald Trump honored that young woman at the State of the Union, don't call it that, last night.
Peyton is here tonight in the gallery, and Peyton, from now on, schools will kick the men off the girls' team, or they will lose all federal funding.
Amazing. And he chose to highlight Peyton's story. That was one of the first items that President Trump, decided to highlight last night. He also weaved in some humor, of course, as he does. He was doing the weave. Here he is talking about RFK Jr. on the topic of people receiving Social Security benefits who are hundreds of years old.
According to the Social Security databases, are age over 160 years old. We have a healthier country than I thought, Bobby.
Next up, Trump also chose to surprise a high school senior named Jason Hartley, whose L.A. County Sheriff father died when he was a child.
When he was just a boy, and now he wants to carry on the family legacy of service. Jason is a senior in high school, a 6-letter varsity athlete, a really good athlete, they say, a brilliant student with a 4.46, that's good, GPA. And his greatest dream is to attend the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. And Jason, that's a very big deal getting in. That's a hard one to get into, but I'm pleased to inform you that your application has been accepted. You will soon be joining the Corps of Cadets.
Really inspiring. It was obvious that Jason had no idea that that was coming. President Trump also announced the terrorist responsible for the Abbey Gate bombing and the deaths of 13 American troops was apprehended and is being extradited to the U.S. Again, for both those items, no Democrats clapping at all. But probably the clip of the night was Donald Trump's message for every child in America.
Banning and criminalizing sex changes on children and forever ending the lie that any child is trapped in the wrong body. This is a big lie. And our message to every child in America is that you are perfect exactly the way God made you.
Amen. The Commander-in-Chief of the United States, probably still the most powerful man in the world, said that to all of the nation's children last night. Incredible. A few other highlights that we'll get to. Secret Service Director Sean Curran, during the address to the joint session of Congress last night, Secret Service Director Sean Curran gave DJ Daniel, a Texas boy who's been battling cancer for most of his life, he gave him certification to become an honorary member of the Secret Service. Now, DJ Daniel, like I said, he's been fighting cancer, but it's always been his dream to become a cop. And last night, Donald Trump made that dream come true, an honorary member of the Secret Service. Again, Democrats did not clap for the kid with brain cancer. More thoughts on just what we saw last night at the address to the joint session of Congress. It was really inspiring. It was encouraging. It was uplifting. President Trump, he not only articulated, but he embodied the spirit, the real spirit that's going to take from all of us if this country is ever going to turn around and be saved one day. And I just thought it was very inspiring. I'll have more thoughts on just what we saw from the Democrats last night, too, coming up in Air Analysis. But when we come back, there was other news that happened yesterday. The trade wars just got well, they were already interesting. The trade wars just stayed interesting. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is coming back on his knees, crawling back to the bargaining table, and cuts at the Internal Revenue Service. That's coming up next. Listen to the lamentations of the Canadians.
Even the excuse that he's giving for these Paris tariffs today of fentanyl is completely bogus, completely unjustified, completely false. So we actually have to fold back on the one thing he has said repeatedly, that what he wants is to see a total collapse of the Canadian economy, because that'll make it easier to annex us, is the second half of his thought. Now, first of all, that's never going to happen. We will never be the 51st state.
It's Canadian Prime Minister Justin Castro talking about the new tariffs in effect now on goods imported from Canada and Mexico, 25%. I'm pretty sure if you're the head of any state and you ever have to utter the phrase, "We will never become the 51st state of another country," and not just laughing at that statement, you're already on the road to becoming the 51st state. Howard Lutnick, he's the Commerce Secretary of the United States, says we could be seeing a deal be struck between Donald Trump and Canada and Mexico, who had those tariffs imposed on them, 25% just yesterday.
He's going to come out today angry that Americans are still being killed. Now, both the Mexicans and the Canadians were on the phone with me all day today trying to show that they'll do better. And the president's listening because, you know, he's very, very fair and very reasonable. So I think he's going to work something out with them. It's not going to be a pause, none of that pause stuff. But I think he's going to figure out, you do more, and I'll meet you in the middle some way. And we're going to probably be announcing that tomorrow. So somewhere in the middle will likely be the outcome. The president moving with the Canadians and Mexicans, but not all the way.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick discussing the new tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Back in Canada, Prime Minister Castro also said he's going to skip vacations.
This is a trade war, yes. But Canadians are hurt. Canadians are angry. We're going to choose to not go on vacation in Florida or Old Orchard Beach.
Yeah, so Justin Castro says no vacations in Florida. Here's Florida Governor Ron DeSantis at his State of the State address just yesterday.
2024 saw more than 142 million visitors come to the state of Florida. This includes 3.3 million visitors from Canada. That's not much of a boycott in my book. Maybe they wanted to get a glimpse of what a Stanley Cup winning hockey team actually looks like.
Yes, DeSantis has always had the most subtle way and very forthright way of trolling the absolute bejesus out of all of the most deserving people. Now, check this out. President Trump covered this also in passing during his Don't Call Out This State of the Union address last night. BlackRock has agreed to buy 2 major ports on the Panama Canal from their Hong Kong-based owner as part of a $22.8 billion deal following pressure from Donald Trump over alleged Chinese influence at the vital waterway. Under the agreement, the port's Hong Kong-based owner, C.K. Hutchinson, would sell the business to a consortium including BlackRock, Global Infrastructure Partners, and Terminal Investment Limited, according to a company statement on Tuesday. The group would acquire 90% stake in the company that owns and operates 2 ports on the Panama. So, don't like BlackRock, but this definitely, obviously, a step in the direction of actually accomplishing something that Donald Trump has talked about openly, which is taking the Panama Canal back. It's pretty, a canal is only as important as the ports that actually run them, and so that is one way of actually getting those ports back under American control, is making sure they're owned by American companies. On the Ukraine front, Volodymyr Zelensky has come crawling back to the negotiating table. He said in a letter yesterday and a social media post, quote, "Our meeting in Washington, D.C. at the White House on Friday did not go the way it was supposed to be. It was regrettable that it happened this way. It's time to make things right. My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get peace that lasts. We remember the moment when things changed when President Trump provided Ukraine with javelins. We are grateful for this. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it anytime and in any convenient format. We see this agreement as a step toward greater security and solid security guarantees, and I truly hope it will work effectively." Total, complete, 100% 200-proof capitulation from Ukrainian Green Shirt President Volodymyr Zelensky. It's a wonder what you can do when you cut off a nation like Ukraine's access to American weaponry, which is what Trump did, and less than 24 hours later, Volodymyr Zelensky, total capitulation. According to the Associated Press, the IRS is drafting plans to cut its workforce by as much as half through a mix of layoffs, attrition, and incentivized buyouts. According to a couple of sources familiar with the situation, the people spoke Tuesday on condition of anonymity because they weren't authorized to disclose the plans. The layoffs are part of the Trump administration's efforts to shrink the size of the federal workforce through Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency by closing agencies, laying off nearly all probationary employees who have not yet gained civil service protection, and offering buyouts to almost all federal employees through deferred resignation programs to quickly reduce the government workforce. So, with these cuts maybe coming to the IRS, and we know Donald Trump, at least on some level, wants to replace the income tax with tariffs. How far away are we from Donald Trump just saying, hey, Americans, don't pay your taxes anymore, force the government to actually implement my plan to replace your taxes, your income taxes, with tariffs? How far are we away from that? I'm kind of wondering. I mean, it's obvious Donald Trump has 0 F's left to give. You should pay your taxes, by the way. I'm just spitballing here, playing a game, theoretics, all of that's good stuff. But, man, you kind of have to think that could be in the cards. Well, I talked earlier this week about RFK Jr.'s curious op-ed at Fox News. Well, he was back on Fox News to discuss more about that supposed measles outbreak in Texas.
What we're trying to do is really to restore faith in government and to make sure that we are there to help them with their needs and not particularly to dictate what they ought to be doing. Right now, we have, we're delivering vitamin A. We are providing assistance.
So as jarring as it was to hear RFK Jr., to see RFK Jr. write in that Fox News op-ed about his newfound, apparently, belief in vaccines, particularly the MMR vaccine, he did talk about therapeutics, and you heard him mention that there. Vitamin A cod liver oil, which has high concentrations of vitamin A and D, and a couple of other therapeutics. That is, I think, an important thing to highlight, because you've never heard, for the most part, you've never heard public health officials, especially not the head of HHS, talk about therapeutics as basic as like vitamin A and D. It's always vaccine only, vaccine always, vaccine tomorrow, vaccine forever. That's all they ever talk about. So at least that is a positive change coming from RFK Jr. Therapeutics like vitamin A and D, basic stuff like that, those still matter. Well, I'm loath to feature clips from The View, but I think this one was worth playing because Stephen A. Smith, sports personality, he was their guest this week, and he said what everybody was thinking: enough with your copium about Donald Trump not winning a mandate.
It's only been in office for 6 weeks. Seems like 6 years, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And he's been going around with his cronies touting his so-called landslide and blowout win. But he won the popular vote by 1.5%, one of the smallest ever, and he won the general election by less than 50%. So what kind of mandate is this really?
Well, it is a mandate, and I'm going to explain why. And I don't mind the question, but let me be very clear. I'm no supporter of Trump. I'm a supporter of truth and the facts. And here's the facts. The man won every swing state. He increased in terms of his voter turnout in his favor from the standpoint of blacks, Latinos, and young voters. He increased his numbers in that regard from 2020. 89% of the counties shifted to the right. That's a mandate. We can sit up there and play around all we want to. In 2020, Trump didn't win the popular vote. He didn't win the electoral college vote. A matter of fact, the Republicans hadn't won the popular vote, if I remember correctly, since 2004. But they did this year. So 20 years after they last won the popular vote, they won the popular vote. They won the electoral college vote. The man won every swing state. And on top of it all, 89% of the counties shifted against. I don't understand how people can look at that and say, there's no mandate.
Facts, and you're not even getting to the best part. When you factor in the fact that the Democrats tried to kill him, they tried to put him in prison on multiple occasions. Yes, he still beat them. That's still a mandate. Enough with the copium. All right, when we come back, final thoughts on what we heard last night from Donald Trump's address, President Trump's address to the joint session of Congress. That's coming up next. And finally, air analysis. More thoughts to close out today on Donald Trump's address to the joint session of Congress last night. 100 minutes long, very long speech, but it hit on all of the points, all of the things that really make America, America. Strength, bravery, persistence, boldness. Those are all qualities that made this nation what it is. He did it in his style, but this is not the same Donald Trump. This is the Donald Trump, I'd say 3.0. It was all of Donald Trump's personality, all of his ability to kind of turn a phrase and flick off and tick off people who don't like him very much, but without any of the douchiness. This was the most presidential version of Donald Trump I've ever seen, but it was still Donald Trump. It was still his signature brand and style. He's obviously, don't say old dogs can't learn new tricks. He's obviously improved just as a communicator through these now almost a decade in politics. So I said earlier, these are all, he not only embodied, or he not only articulated, he embodied by making dreams come true last night on multiple occasions. He not only articulated, but he embodied the spirit of Americanism. The spirit of America. This is still the land of opportunity. You have opportunities. You can succeed. You will succeed. You can be strong. You can be bold. Truth, justice, and the American way. That's basically what I would call that speech last night. So, proud to be an American this morning. But I don't understand. I really don't understand. Talking about the Democrats. I do understand. But it still blows my mind nonetheless. Al Green, congressman from Texas, I believe in Harris County, isn't that Houston? Al Green got up in the first 5 minutes, started waving his cane around and yelling at Donald Trump. It's all about me. That's basically what it is. It's all about me. Yelling about Trump being, I don't know. I couldn't tell. I don't care. Who thought that was a good idea? You just lost. You just got pantsed by this guy a few months ago. This is your first foray in the public eye? Yeah, Houston is in Harris County. I believe that DJ Daniel, that young kid with brain cancer, I believe he's from Houston. I don't know if Al Green is his congressman or not. But he got booted. I mean, how bad does it have to be when you made Mike Johnson look like a frickin' badass for tossing you out and calling on the sergeant of arms to get you out of there? But then the rest of the night, no clapping for tax cuts. No clapping for a kid who wanted to go to West Point, and then Donald Trump, the freaking commander-in-chief, informs him, hey, you've been accepted. Pack your bags. No clapping for kids with cancer. No clapping for standing up for women's sports. No clapping for God made you just the way and loves you just the way you are. You are perfect just the way you are. And you're a boy or a girl, and there's no changing that, and that's okay. No clapping for that. These people in the opposition, they're just broken. They need Jesus so bad, but they hate him and anything that he stands for. And I think it's just that simple. You know, Elise Slotkin, the senator from Michigan, came on to give the Democrat rebuttal, and she tried to talk about things like the economy. But towards the beginning of her rebuttal, she tried to talk about shared values that we're supposed to have, Democrats and Republicans, after her party couldn't even bring themselves to clap for anything except for one thing, Ukraine, a foreign country. These people can never have real power again. And I'm here to tell you this morning, after what we heard last night, after what we've seen in the first 6 weeks of the Trump administration, the second Trump administration, there ain't no going back. We are pot committed here on the side of truth, justice, and the American way. We have to see this through. Those people cannot have real power again. I don't care if it's Trump 2028, Frump 2028, Hump 2028. These people just cannot see real power again. They just can't. That's going to do it for a Wednesday. Be sure to vote in our poll of the week that's posted and pinned at the top of my X profile at Real AM Update. I asked you, do you think we're ever going to see the Epstein files? Go vote, and we'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.